between Europe and Asia. I'm so excited to host this wonderful global webinar with wonderful colleagues from India, Singapore, New Jersey, Canada. Go ahead and get started. This is Dr. Yavuz Sulay. I'm the chairman of Istanbul Consulting Group, and we will go ahead and get started with our colleague from Singapore, Mrs. Won. She is a regulatory expert from Singapore. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, this is Wyman. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody online. Okay, my name is Wyman, and first of all, I'd like to thank for the kind introduction and also MPAF Inc. for allowing me this opportunity to share with you the regulatory environment in Singapore. Okay, first of all, to introduce myself, I'm a regulatory affairs consultant based in Singapore. I specialize in the regulation for food supplements, functional food, and beverage in the regional capacity. That is, I handle, besides Singapore, I also work on the Southeast Asian countries and some of the Northeast Asia countries. So I help companies to provide advice on regulatory strategies for product developments and the healthcare developments. Besides that, I also work with the regional trade associations and the regulators in the Southeast Asian nation, in short ASEAN, in the product working group for the harmonization of the technical requirements for health supplements and traditional medicines. Okay, that is so much for myself. Let's start with, first of all, I'll introduce about my country, Singapore. Okay, Singapore is a very small island, and just give you an idea how small it is. To travel from the east to west, it takes us less than 45 minutes of drive. Okay, however, Singapore is a very dense island with a population of 5.6 million. Sorry, 5.6 million, correct. And our government also projected the population will grow into 7 million in a few years' time. The large populations of Singaporeans are from the middle-income families, and there's a demographic trend of the aging populations in Singapore. So, speaking of the aging populations, according to our government latest projection release, by the year 2030, which is in 13 years' time, one in every 4 Singaporeans are at the age of 65 and above. So, from this, you could understand that there is high demand of the healthcare-related products and service. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's a large population of middle-income household, and our GDP is a bit higher than US, it's 52,960. Okay, so our government has been making effort to promote the healthy living and preventing healthcare among the Singaporeans. Therefore, there's a high interest in health and wellness products, as the prevention healthcare products among population here. So, from what I found from the internet, from the Euromonitor research done in the year 2013, the market size for food supplements and functional food in Singapore is experiencing a growth of 4.1% in terms of the compound annual growth rate. Okay, so next, I shall share with you what makes Singapore an attractive market to consider based on the regulatory perspective, which is what I specialize in. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, Singapore is very, very small country with very limited resource. So we rely heavily on imported products. So as you'll notice that our country signed a lot of the free trade agreement with many countries. And quite recently, our Prime Minister just had a meeting with the leaders in Turkey to discuss about enhancing the free trade agreement. So as we are heavily reliant on trade, the regulation that is developed in Singapore it had to be there should be the balance. So when our health authority develop regulations, they have to ensure that the regulation is robust enough to protect the interests of the consumer. At the same time, it should not impede the trade. So let me focus on the food supplements, which I specialize in. Okay, food supplements products are regulated under the pharmaceutical laws, or in other words, medicinal law in Singapore. In Singapore, um, the authority uses the risk-based approach in regulating the products. So for therapeutic products, naturally, it will be considered high-risk product. This kind of product will require registrations. As for health supplements, it's considered a low-risk product, so they are not subjected to pre-marketing approval. So for these products, the onus lies with the manufacturer to ensure that the product is safe and efficacious. So this is very for the companies who wish for speedy launch to the market. Though pre-marketing approval is not required, but we have to note that the Singapore authority do conduct vigorous post-marketing surveillance check for safety of the products in the market. So if there's any cases of violation to the safety, for example, adulteration, there'll be severe penalty. So that's about the Singapore market. One other area of Singapore being a very attractive market is that it's a gateway to the Southeast Asian nations. Okay, in short, ASEAN. So for those of you who are not familiar with ASEAN, ASEAN stands for the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations. So besides Singapore, there are countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, and what we call the CLMV countries like Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Brunei Darussalam. Okay, um, the ASEAN is actually formed in 1967 for the regional security reason, but in recent year, the 10 ASEAN member states decided to work together for the economic growth. That is why our leaders have decided to work towards the development of harmonized technical requirements or regulations for various products. So under the healthcare, we have pharmaceutical products, medical device, cosmetics, which have already um, completed the harmonization process and is already implemented. Whereas what I'm closely is the traditional medicine and health supplement product working group. So it has been a long process. It started in 2003. The technical requiremements is being completed, and now the lawyers are working on the agreement for the final adoption and implementation. So, so with these common requirements, this gives rise to opportunity for companies consider other bigger ASEAN member states such as Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, using Singapore as the starting point. Okay, there is so much I would like to share about Singapore and also the region around. So if you have any other further questions, please feel free to contact me. I believe my email address is published on the. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much, Ms. Moon, for this excellent introduction of Singapore and its regulatory environment, including all the details, as well as the Asian and the large in advance because you finished 2 minutes earlier than your allotted time. So thank you so much for being on time. And
My
I will go
pleasure.
ahead and turn the discussion to Mrs. Rajeshwari from India. She's a very well-known patent attorney, and she'll go ahead and tell us more about her background as well as what she does in India. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. So good morning and good evening to everyone. Uh, Let me introduce myself a little bit. I am Rajeshwari. I own a law. Rajeshwari and Associates. So we're a law firm in India which specializes
Can you
in.
speak a bit louder? Sorry to interrupt here, but can you speak a bit louder, please?
Oh yeah, sure.
If
I'll
you
take it
can
out.
take the microphone close to your mouth, I
Yeah.
think that will make it much better, if you don't mind. Thank you so much. I really appreciate for taking your microphone closer. Yes, excellent. Yes. That should be better. If you can repeat. Yes, it's better
Yes,
now.
it's better now. Can you repeat?
I think it should be better now.
Yes, perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So, good morning and good evening to everyone around in the webinar. I'm grateful to Bud for organizing this webinar so that we can all get around and talk to each other. So, I would like to introduce myself. I am Rajeshwari. I have a law firm, Rajeshwari and Associates, and we specialize in intellectual property law. So, before I come to what we do and what our organization does, a little bit about the intellectual property in India. So India was market where you used to have a process and then you used to have only process patents prior to 2005. It's only after 2005 that we go into the regime of product patents. And as we go to the regime of product patents, the necessity for acquiring patent rights, for enforcing them, for protecting them became very important as it is in the West. So there was a complete paradigm shift from what it was in the past and what we have now. So that matters started to increase. Of course, the interpretation of law as well as principles started to law firms, machines, and law firms. But we are unique, and our uniqueness is we do own the IP. We have a specialty in intellectual property law. We have a very reasonable mix of lawyers along with technical staff. So we are able to understand your invention. We know what your invention means. So we therefore understand what the whole invention, the whole product is, the technicality of the product. Therefore, we able to address the court. And in a very practical manner.
Rajeshwari, your voice goes. Sorry to disturb you, but your voice keeps coming and going, my. Hello? Your voice goes.
Okay, we will try
Now it's
again.
better. Now it's better. Yeah.
Okay. So, as I said, we have a blend of lawyers and technical staff, so we can understand the depth of the invention. We are able to articulate it very well to the court, and the courts can understand it. And because we have the legal as well as the technical expertise, we are able to enforce the patents as well as protect their inventions like no one else. So that is why in many litigations we prevail over the others. So we give also very practical advice to the clients. We never advise the client to go for litigation when other strategies can work and a litigation can be avoided. So we look at the practical nature of the dispute and we try to resolve it in that way. So we have a vast experience of cases. So we have an experience of over 20 years, and that is why we are able to articulate and enforce as well as protect the inventions very easily. In pharma and biotech, we are one of the best, and I can say that with some responsibility. We have some domain expertise in this field, right from the earliest cases that we have had. So, for example, we had the Glyvac dispute. So, in the Glyvac dispute, it involved polymorph. So, our client was advised by us to file oppositions and revoke the patent. In fact, it is only in India that the Glyvac molecule faced an opposition and successfully, and eventually, even in the Supreme Court, upheld the dispute and upheld that the patent should be revoked. We work with a number of clients like Mylan, Teva, Biocon, Apotex. So the work that we do is twofold because we think enforcement and protection are two sides of the same coin. Now the scenario is going towards enforcement. The courts are now recognizing the principles that are followed in the rest of the world, and courts are enforcing patents to a greater extent than they used to in the past. So, India is a common law country, quite like Canada and the UK. So, in India, we have many principles and many laws which are very similar to Canada and to UK. So, many issues, many principles that you apply in the Canadian law might actually be applicable in the Indian law. For example, the Anton Pillar order, the search and seizure, obtaining ex parte injunctions. These are possible in the UK. In India, it is possible as well. In fact, in India, you get the ex parte injunction, which means that you can get an injunction without the defendant, and in fact, it would be a surprise for the defendant that a lawsuit has been filed against him. So, this kind of provision does not exist elsewhere, and India has such a provision. That is why many companies use India as a base for some of their litigations. So the battle is also fought in India as much as it is fought elsewhere. So in a dispute which now becomes global, where, for example, an Indian company is supplying the device or the parts or the API to a foreign company, You also have a dispute filed in India, while you will have a similar dispute filed in the US or in Canada. And we are seeing more and more of such disputes. India is also developing regulations in the field of biosimilars and biobetters. And in fact, Indian companies are now developing biosimilar products so that they can protect it as well as enforce them. Peginterferon is one of the kind of cases where our client was able to launch the product without much of patent disputes. And all this was possible because of strategic advice. So although there are so many patents which protect this particular compound in India, our client was able to make the formulation and was able to protect as well as launch their product. Today, it takes not more than 2 or 3 years to get your trademark or your patent. And the Indian Patent Office is trying to do its best to expedite the grant. And to that, we are contributing our own bit. We contribute towards making of the handbook to make the legislation. And therefore, we know we have a very good rapport with the Patent Office as much as we have a rapport with the judges of the court. Similarly, when you come to the area of contracts, you have contracts which people can download and you can write, but are they enforceable? So we make them enforceable. We have the technical as well as the legal expertise, and therefore we bring that expertise to the table, and when clients come to us for advice. One of the things that we also do is to advise clients pre-litigation so that they can protect their inventions. So while India is taking giant steps to try and join the global brigade in enforcing intellectual property law, we are trying to be, and we probably are one of the guiding stars in this field. So with that, we would like to conclude. If you have any questions, please feel free to write to me, and I will be happy to answer the same.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajeshwari, for this wonderful explanation about the current patent regulations in India and your clear expertise on patent laws. And clearly, you are one of the biggest players in the Indian market, which covers almost 1/4 of the world. So we truly appreciate your beautiful explanation on this expertise topic. And from here, I would like to join and welcome our Canadian colleagues. And I have John Simon and Rob Wilson. So we will get to Canada, whoever is available first now. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Rob, floor is yours, Rob.
Yes, I can definitely start with mine.
Your microphone.
Can you hear me okay?
Can everybody hear Rob?
No, I cannot hear Rob. Rob, if you can get your microphone close to your mouth, please. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Excellent.
Okay. Good morning and good evening, everybody. My name is Rob Welton. I'm from Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada, and I will be speaking to you about the Canadian life sciences market in Canada. So the Canadian life sciences market is basically made up of the sale and production of pharmaceuticals, biotechnical devices such as pacemakers, imaging devices. We have functional foods and natural health products, and we have an exciting emerging market in nanomaterials. So we'll start with the pharmaceutical marketplace. The four-firm concentration ratio for the Canadian pharmaceutical market is 26%, and that suggests that the market structure is monopolistic competition. Sales of prescription drugs are dominated by brand name products, with 77% of prescription drugs being brand name and 34% being generic. Canadian pharmaceutical sales by consumer access are 87.5% from major retailers and 12.5% through hospitals. The top 10 Canadian manufacturers hold 47% of the market share. The remaining 53% of the market share is divided amongst 543 firms. Competition amongst the remaining firms is monopolistic, and the remaining 53% of the market share accounts for 13 billion Canadian dollars. 73% of those firms in Canada are profitable, and the top 25% of Canadian firms earn 71% profit. What this suggests is that at a high profit margin like 71%, there is room in the marketplace for new participants. Even though, because of the fact that there's such a high concentration of brand name and patented drugs, we can still expect that oligopoly games will challenge new participants. So now we can go on to the biotechnical market. The biotechnical market in Canada accounts for 2% of the world market at $6.7 billion US. The market is extremely diversified, with no specific firms holding any large amount of market share. Expenditures in the market, 21% towards diagnostic imaging, 18% towards consumables, 15% in patient aids, 12% orthopedic and prosthetic, and 8% dental products. The remaining 27% include things like wheelchairs, ophthalmic instruments, anesthesia apparatus, dialysis apparatus, blood pressure monitors, endoscopy, and hospital furniture. Now, imports are dominated by the United States at 44%, followed by China with 11% and Mexico with 8%. Other countries include Costa Rica, Japan, Switzerland, Malaysia, Ireland, Italy, and Germany. And total imports equal to about 6.8 billion. As I said before, no companies hold any significant market share, and there are 2,416 firms competing in the market, all firms being small to medium enterprise. Manufacturers all belong to associations. There's one federal and all-encompassing association and 8 provincial associations. And the presence of these associations casts a light that there may be some threat to protectionist fiscal policy through government lobbying. The top 25% of Canadian firms in biotech make 52.7% margin, which is also suggestive that there is, again, room in the marketplace. And sought after qualities from new products or new manufacturers will be availability, reliability, timely delivery, innovation, and ease of maintenance. So we'll move on to functional foods and natural health products. Shifting demographics in the industry has allowed for some increased attention to the market, although the market is predominantly owned by the big food manufacturers. Target markets would include the aging baby boomer generation, parents of children that are interested in providing functional foods that enhance their development, and millennials who will use the internet and social media to research the benefit of functional foods and natural health products. Key opportunities here are not necessarily in the development of functional food and natural health products themselves, but in the scientific and research behind the functional foods and natural health products. So you have the development of biotechnology in DNA testing and nutrigenomics. You have nanotechnology, which is used in food processing and food preserving. And you have value-added ingredients like novel fibers, antioxidants, pre and probiotics, and other nutraceuticals. Other marketing considerations, consumers prefer immediate consumption of single portion meals. They are looking for environmental stewardship in production methods, locally sourced ingredients, and food waste reduction in the production methods. They are also looking for information about the food with respect to health and well-being, their own personal choices and values, and clear label information concerning vitamin and mineral contents. So some other emerging technical opportunities are in the development of nanocapsules that are used to enhance the bioavailability of bioactive substances that enhance nutrition and homeopathic treatment delivery. Nanoparticles that selectively bind to and remove harmful chemicals or pathogens. Antibodies attached to nanoparticles that will fluoresce in the presence of harmful chemicals and foodborne pathogens. And biodegradable nanosensors that can detect temperature, moisture, and time monitoring. And finally, the development of nanoclays and nanofilms that prevent oxygen absorption and delay spoilage. So as I said before, the industry is predominantly dominated by already established firms. The market has an oligopoly structure and penetration would be difficult. Since 2004, Health Canada has received 87,167 licenses for application for functional food and natural health products, and they actually issued 54,706 of them. And although 72% of the firms are profitable, the median net profit is only 14.8%, further suggesting that it's a fairly closed marketplace. Now we'll go into my favorite, the nanomaterial marketplace, which is basically brand new and full of exciting opportunities. Health Canada and Environment and Climate Change Canada have been working together to develop a system to regulate the use of nanomaterials in functional food and natural health products and in medical devices. On May the 4th, 1994, Environment Canada issued a public domestic substances list, which was in Part 2 of the Canadian Gazette. And to this day, the domestic substance list is the sole standard against which substance is judged to be new to Canada. So in identifying a nano-based product or material, the sponsor will be asked to self-identify when their application concerns a nanomaterial or nanoproduct. And recently, the drug submission application for human veterinary disinfectant drugs and clinical trial applications was revised to facilitate this process. So in summary, some final insights. In pharmaceuticals, even though the market structure is monopolistic competition by 4-factor concentration ratio and a large profit is available, prospective entrants may still face oligopoly games due to the fact that there's such a large concentration of drugs that are brand names and patented. There is a common practice in Canada, though, where pharmacists automatically replace brand name prescription drugs with generic equivalents. And this procedure offsets the cost to insurance providers and may work in the favor of generic drug manufacturers. The buying power of large retail outlets will limit options on pricing because shelf space is a big ticket real estate item in the large retail outlets, and also psychometrics among consumers will play a large role in the entry of a new product due to fierce brand loyalty among Canadian consumers. Innovation is key. A new entrant is going to have to be innovative in order to keep pace with the rapidly changing marketplace. In the biotechnical market, it's more openly competitive. The largest barrier to entry, other than the Health Canada requirements for an established license, may come from fiscal policy. The biotechnical market is a focus for the development by regional and federal governments in Canada, and is becoming the darling of the Canadian government. Innovation also fuels this biotechnical market, and new discoveries that will minimize the trade-off between treatment and long-term patient risk will propel interest towards a new product. In functional foods and natural health products, as demand grows for alternative medicine and enriched functional foods, the major players in the food industry in Canada will be taking more interest in the production of these goods. Due to the lucrative interest in ready-to-eat meals and single servings, prospective entrants will find it difficult with challenges from the oligopoly game. In the nanomaterials market, there are many emerging opportunities, and it's currently wide open. Health Canada developed a working definition of nanomaterials in 2011, and currently nanomaterials are segregated into two subclasses: those that are on the domestic substance list and those that are subject to scrutiny from Environment and Climate Change Canada under new substances notification regulations. And these regulations apply to all chemicals and polymers in nano form. And a final note is that consumers in Canada are fiercely brand loyal. They trust in what they know and understand. This is relevant to organizational and private consumers. To create a sustainable market for new products imported to Canada, an extensive education program must be included in the marketplace. The education program must be segmented to include organizational buyers and the ultimate consumer. This means creating material for medical journals, brochures targeting buyers in both retail outlets and health regions, and in providing in-store product information in order to educate the ultimate consumer. So if you have any further interest in Canadian biotech, pharmaceutical, or nano markets, you can definitely contact me through Dr. Pravan Bhatt at NPAF, or you can email me directly.
Thank you so much. Somehow there seems to be some issue with the connectivity there at Turkey, and I lost Dr. Saili for a second. I'm trying to bring him back. Hopefully very soon I will be. But Kevin, before I reel the video, I would like to take the charge of the presentation, please. Kevin.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. Is everybody able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, my name is Kevin McNiv, and I am a founding partner of Maymax Incorporated, which is a multinational, multicultural corporation based out of Memphis, Tennessee, in the United States. We have recent expansion into the United Arab Emirates, and as recently as 4 months ago, I just flew home from Turkey, meeting with Yavuz Saleh to speak about further expansion going into Turkey. What Maymax does is we are a sourcing and manufacturing company. We manufacture and design quite a few of our own products. I believe we have just under 2,000 products, mainly FDA regulated. Doing business in the United States is always going to be a challenge, but doing business outside of the country is also a tremendous challenge. We currently have a legal team working with us, constantly communicating with the U.S. Treasury Office of Foreign Asset Control, which everybody knows as OFAC, maintaining the guidelines and procedures and compliance that we have to go through in order to ship and maintain clients in certain countries in the Middle East that we work with. As it was mentioned earlier, our legal compliance is utmost important to us in order to maintain a credible corporation. The future of the company is going to not only stay within the medical device sector that we are in, but we, as of recently, entered the pharmaceutical market as well, as we were passing on a tremendous amount of business to our clientele. I wish I had known prior to making the decision to enter the pharmaceutical market how difficult it was. As many of you know, it's a very challenging sector. In all it's challenging, but pharmaceuticals is specifically challenging. One of the giant hurdles that we have to overcome daily is not only being able to supply the pharmaceutical products to our clients, but being able to source them. Distribution contracts with large manufacturers do not always allow us to purchase product, and that leads us to having to go to countries, outside of the U.S. and Europe in order to source these products. As mentioned earlier, we're very aware that a lot of the API is coming from the Indian markets. Being new to the pharmaceutical sector, trying to sift through and find the credible organizations that present strong API is also challenging. But I appreciate a good challenge, as I'm sure everybody on this call does. Moving forward in our global markets, we are always looking to form strategic partnerships, group and joint group purchasing agents. That seems to be one of the main ways that we're able to be competitive in pricing with the pharmaceuticals. Again, not being able to form those direct relationships with the larger players, the Glaxos and the Pfizers. We need to join other group purchasing agencies in order to get that pricing. As we continue to expand and go into these markets, we have to change our strategy. It seems consistent with us, though, and I'm sure everybody on this call is very familiar with dealing with the MOHs, the Ministries of Health. It's very consistent that the same processes are in place. It's just a matter of how quickly you can get through them. In our Middle Eastern markets, with the clients we have there, we have strong ties to the MOH, which is always extremely helpful. In our Caribbean markets, we do not share the same benefits, so dealing with the MOH in some of the Caribbean markets is a little bit more challenging. As of recent, we are now looking into the Cuban markets, which is exciting, and it's a very open market. And we will start dealing with the compliances and everything that we need to do on the U.S. side of the border in order to enter that market properly. That's pretty much all I have to say for today, but if anybody would like to reach me, you can reach me through the group chat on WhatsApp, or you can email me directly. Thank you.
Thank you so
The voice seems
Everybody's having trouble hearing me today.
Hello? Doctor, your voice keeps breaking, doctor?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, now we'll go ahead, and I just want to thank both Rob from Canada as well as Kevin McNiven from New Jersey. And thank you so much, Kevin, for this wonderful business perspective of the U.S. market and globally, the Cuban as well as other opportunities. Clearly, you have great leadership in pharmaceutical, and I know many clients would love to work with you to utilize your expertise globally. And from there, let's go to John, and we will go ahead and relay his 3-minute message. Thank you.
Thank you. And you guys will not be able to hear, but the live audience and the live proceedings will be able to hear John. And
Hi, good morning.
Here he goes.
My name is John Simon. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make the conference, but I put together a quick video just to let you know what type of work I do. I'm a regulatory affairs and quality assurance consultant, so I help companies with site licenses and product licenses for regulated products. So I primarily work with medical devices, biologics, drugs, controlled substances, natural health products and cosmetics, and help companies get their products on the Canadian and U.S.
Medical
markets.
devices, biologics,
Classification of products is
drugs,
based on
controlled
claim and
substances,
ingredients, and
natural health products, and
the
cosmetics.
first step we do is to make sure that
Help companies get their
how
products
your product meets the definition of a drug or device, and then what steps we need to take to get a license and to be authorized to sell the product in the Canadian and U.S. markets. So, one example that I typically refer to is socks. So, socks in general, you buy them from the store. It's not a medical device, not regulated. But if you're going to use it as a support after surgery,
So socks
that
in
is a
general,
class
you
1
buy it from the
medical
store,
device.
it's not a medical device, it's not
It's a
regulated.
low risk device,
But if you're
and
going to
requires
use it
you
as
to
a
list the product and
support after
have a
surgery,
license in Canada
so socks in general,
to
you buy
sell
it
the
from the
product
store,
in
it's
the
not a
United
medical
States.
device, it's not regulated.
If as the claims
But if you're
get
going to
more
use it
in
as a
detail, so if you say that
support after
your
surgery,
sock prevents pooling after surgery, that's a class 2 medical device, and in Canada we require ISO 1345 certification with the Canadian Medical Device Conformity Assessment, which is now being placed by the Medical Device Single Audit Program, and you need to submit a medical device license to Health Canada. So in order to sell these regulated products in Canada, you need to list the devices or products and then follow our good manufacturing practices to our standards. So that's just a little bit of background on the regulatory and quality support that I give companies, and looking forward to hearing if there's any opportunities that come from this from the meeting, and I'm available through contact through Dr. Bat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. This webinar is being recorded for quality purpose, and we will not only host this webinar over our live channel via YouTube. It is being watched through LinkedIn, Facebook page, Facebook profile, so on and so forth. So, again, a big thanks to all of you for supporting the event. As you all are aware of, that Mudyal Pharmaceutical is the banner sponsor, and my dear friend Petro had to fly to New Jersey in an emergency situation, as well as Simon John had unavoidable family emergency, so they could not participate in this webinar. We are basically NPAF, a biotech pharmaceutical consulting company. We provide logistics, scientific support here to deal with different supply chains. At Canada, we complement the kind of services that Rob and his team and John and his team bring to the table, and we would like to be a part of this elite network. This webinar will be viewed by many in days to come. And yeah, Dr. Saleh, now the floor is open for the question and answer. I have Dr. Bhatt also joined. I have my first marketing group from India, to whom they are my special invitees, Mr. D.R. Joshi and Dr. S. Bhatt. When I made the beginning at India, they were the pioneer to coach me research and business development. Incidentally, I could not learn both of them, and I learned a different segment of the business, but they both are online. Dr. Saleh is online, Kevin is online, and feel free to ask the questions, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatt, first and foremost, for your tremendous effort in bringing all of us globally around the world. I want to really applaud your effort and give my thanks on behalf of Istanbul Consulting Group for your leadership in Canada to MPAF. And I special thanks to all of my colleagues from Singapore, India, New Jersey, and Canada This clearly shows we are in a global village. And in this global village, despite of all different perspectives and different regulatory environment, similar to this global call, we can easily get together and really create value for our patients, for our customers, and really help guide through access for the patients for biopharmaceutical and medical device. And it only can be possible by doing these type of webinars and really answering questions locally. And I will open the floor for questions, but first I want to invite your dear guests, which came along with you from India, for their initial thoughts and comments. Thank you.
Yes, dear.
Yeah. Actually, I'm speechless. Frankly speaking, it's words count larger than, I mean, always counts, but you have put it in action. So transformation of ideas into action, I think you have taken first step, and I wish you conquer Everest in this, providing and converting the entire global village for opportunities and converting innovations into business. And my hearty good wishes to you. Thank you to all participants and to you in special.
Thank you, dear. And Dr. Bhatt is also on the line. Generally, he is a silent observer and a researcher. But any message, Dr. Bhatt?
Right.
Hello? Dr. Suren Bhatt?
Yeah, actually, you see, I'm very sorry I could join little later, but all the discussion and everything regarding this opportunity in the Canada about the herbal products also, as well as API also. So in the field of API and whatever herbal things are going on, in the case of the research, that sometimes I'll get the opportunity to say something about it. That will be the innovative idea which we can share afterwards sometime. But the thing is that whatever way we could discuss over here, it is fantastic, and congratulations to Dr. Pranav. I wish him all the success.
Thank you. Now let us get back to the sessions of question and answer, my colleagues.
Yes. Any questions at this time or anything you would like to ask to our colleagues? We are open live right now for any questions. Feel free to send messages or call and speak directly. If you have any background noise, make sure to decrease the background and go ahead and get started, please. We have everyone that can ask from different aspects, from India to Singapore to New Jersey to Canada to Turkey. It's all open for your questions. Anyone?
Okay. Dr. Sulay, this is Kevin McNiven in New Jersey. My question to the group is, does anybody have any strategy in these markets, global markets, on how to properly get a either CE or FDA certified pharmaceutical in the hands of the clientele without going through large distribution?
Well, I'll go through each of our speakers and have each of them provide a couple words. Let's start with Singapore. Do you have any comments in terms of Kevin's question, in terms of the best way from your perspective, this one, how would you get the FDA or CE mark, whether you want to enter the European or the US market?
That wasn't.
Honestly speaking, I'm not familiar with the pharmaceutical products, but if you're talking about single markets, it's best if you have an office. If my understanding is correct, that you want to control the products.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
And any comments from India?
Yeah, go ahead, Rajeshwari, please.
Yeah, my only comment was that I think in order to get the FDA approval, what I have seen in the last so many years is people prefer to have a US partner, so that becomes a much easier job than others. So I'm not, though we don't specialize in FDA permission, so I cannot answer that so very well.
Thank you. Any comments from Canada?
Kevin, I have a question for you. Are you, like with these pharmaceuticals, are you producing them yourselves? Or are you trying to market them yourselves? Or are you, like, how are you talking about with terms of distribution?
To be perfectly honest with you, and it's a good question, our background is in medical device. So we manufacture the medical devices, and through vertical integration, or horizontal integration, really, our clientele was requesting to purchase pharmaceuticals from us as well. So we entered the market with some background knowledge. I mean, obviously we did extensive research in order to see what we could do for the clients. But it seems that the greatest challenge that we continue to enter, no matter what market or region globally, is always the same. We always have the challenge, and Rob, we mentioned it earlier, of the oligopolies and everything that goes with them. Trying to play against large distribution companies and the manufacturers not allowing for sales to a smaller company because of the strong contractual obligations they have to those distributors. So my challenge and my question for everybody is, how do we get the drugs, the pharmaceuticals, into the hand of the end user via the smaller companies that do not have the large distribution contracts with the pharmaceutical companies?
Well, what about going through, like, if you've got the arrangements with the actual producers, what about relying on distribution from, like, the larger chains, like retail?
There's no competitive pricing in that. The markup is too big. We cannot do it that way. So many of our end users are governments that we work directly with, and the pricing strategies that are in place are generally based on the same pricing that is coming direct from manufacturer. So in order for us to meet demand from the clientele that are in the market, we have to have competitive pricing, and you cannot get the competitive pricing through the retail chains or through any even wholesalers. It really has to be large purchasing groups or direct distribution from the manufacturer in order to be competitive.
Go ahead.
Any comments from Canada or from India?
Yeah, I have a point to add here, Dr. Saleh. The whole concept of this, whole concept of floating this NPF is to establish connectivity with the business seeker globally through the route of e-commerce, and we want to provide them a free platform to promote the products, to promote the concept, and we will only try to deal and engage my good friend like Simon John only if there is a genuine demand. So we want to give them a digital shelf life where we hit the market with the demand, and then we engage the professional for legitimate approval to deal with Health Canada, as all these services are they need a lot of resources and monies in terms of remuneration. So our sole concept of NPAF is to provide them a shelf life where they can showcase their products, showcase their business acumen, and as soon as the demands start popping up, we will start engaging professionals, we will start dealing with, so we can make a kind of a digital supply chain the way Alibaba is working today. That is the sole purpose of NPF, and I wish after the webinar gets over, people understand it more precisely what we are trying to bring to the table by devoting energy, time, and resources for this WhatsApp group, through LinkedIn groups, so and so forth. Because all the selection of vendor here in Canada, Rob will agree to this fact that everything is digitalized. Nobody goes to make a presentation. I keep touting, I keep speaking about this, but it takes a very long time for business entrepreneur to understand and to digest this very concept. Hopefully this webinar will be a first step forward, and who knows, probably me and Kevin can come up with a different strategy to get you all involved. Isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, yes.
Wonderful. We will talk on a one-to-one basis with each one of, and you feel free to communicate with all the team members, and all the transaction business policies are governed by the disclaimer posted. I'm blessed to have experts sitting on board. Today I'm reaching tons of the people only because of your active participation. When I look back, when we started a WhatsApp group, I was not sure of crystallizing this idea to this level, but it was indeed an active participation of all of you that has brought us thus far. Yes, Doctor?
Thank you so much, Dr. Panaobat, again, for indeed our goal is to really bring and provide each other opportunities. And getting back to Kevin's questions, from my perspective as Istanbul Consulting Group, which has strong ties in Turkey and Europe as well as United States, my recommendation, dear Kevin, is for pharmaceutical, typically, of course, we want all products to be FDA and CE marked, and we can provide those services easily. But on top of that, in terms of market access, what we usually do is, if it's actually a product, a pharmaceutical, which cannot go through the chains, the Walmarts or CVS or Walgreens, we usually start with non-traditional pharmaceutical chains. There are also some independent pharmaceutical that is available in different states, as you well know as well. So for pharmaceutical, we typically go through that. Amazon is also a very good channel for online sales, but one needs to be cautious about online sales. There are also many low quality as well as counterfeit products, and we all are against any counterfeit and illegal products. Many regulatory authorities, including the Turkish authorities, fighting with these counterfeit products. So one has to be very careful when it comes to online sales, but indeed for good quality and with the right chain of sales, online is also a possibility. And I think for the medical device, it boils down to, as well as pharmaceutical, it boils down to the reimbursement. For example, in Turkey, we have only one reimbursement authority. So if you go to Istanbul Consulting Group for Europe or Turkey, you're dealing with one authority, EMA or the Turkish Medicine and Medical Device Agency, and then through the health authority to Social Security Institute. So practically you're tying up 80 million people once you get your product in through the Social Security Institute. So sometimes having not a fragmented reimbursement gives you direct access in one shot if you can explain to the authorities well enough. And I don't know if it answers your question a little bit, but again, going back, I think it will boil down to finding the right market access strategy and utilizing the resources wisely to access the niche areas, and also generating value and showing the great value of your product and innovative perspective, and really telling and having your physicians streamed up and lined up, because at the end, you really need to have a good key opinion leader management, medical affairs strategy, and even if you have a good buy on the reimbursement side, it boils down to the prescription, if it's a prescribed product. So you need a really good key opinion leader chain to make your sales successful. Those are my comments from Istanbul Consulting Group. Any other comments for this question? If no other comments, I would like to get any other questions you may have.
Yes, Maheshwari wanted to speak something. Go ahead, Maheshwari.
Yeah, so just one comment on the on sales online of pharmaceutical products and devices. There are laws in some countries that permit devices and pharmaceuticals to be sold online, and some countries don't permit that. So there's a word of caution there. And secondly, overall, I would think that people are, there are companies in India also who are similarly placed, like Kevin's company, and who have certain products or devices. They want to get them CE marked and they want to export it or to make in India or sell in India. So the only that, for example, when you say Egyptian market, the market is to tie up with local air and to the market. That might be one of the ways of doing it.
And one more, sorry to interject here. We have Dr. Chitra online. She is the partner with, she is a very silent observer as a patent attorney, and she is partner of Rajeshwari. So I would like to welcome her. Chitra, would you like to share something?
Yes, Dr. Bhatt. First of all, thanks for putting together such a nice team, with both people from all facets of patents and sales and regulatory and experts in all fields.
Thank you.
See, this is the best part which we like about MPAF, that different people can contribute different things for a better future, better marketability, and better connectivity. Here we see regulatory experts. So if we have queries in regulation, we should approach them, and we see innovation experts who we can go for innovation, and we deal with patents. So we deal with patents across the globe, both India, US, and we could do that. Actually, Rajeshwari and I are shortly traveling to Singapore. We can meet Dr. Poon. It will be a pleasure. So, if we have time, I will write to Dr. Poon separately. So
It's
this
my
is
pleasure
a
to meet you.
it's a pleasure. So we will all get together, and thanks, Dr. Bhatt, for initiating such a conference.
Thank you so much. At this time, do we have any other question for any of the participants that you would like to ask? Otherwise, I will show you the beauty of Istanbul right now on my back. So you can all welcome. And maybe in our next global webinar, after a couple global webinars, we will host a face-to-face meeting in Singapore or New Jersey or Alberta, Canada, or Istanbul or India. We don't know. But again, thank you, Dr. Pranal Bhatt, and thank you, Mundial Pharmaceutical, for making this happen. And I would like to thank everyone and our experts for this wonderful meeting. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Once again, when we conclude the meeting of the day, I take this opportunity to all the participants for supporting this event, and especially Mudial Pharmaceutical. Today, my dear friend Petro could not participate as he is flying to US, to Dominican Republic, but we are thankful. We cannot forget to acknowledge his generosity, and time to time we will keep organizing this webinar in a more efficient and a professional manner. And I wish to make a digital caucus. In doctor's terminology, what I say is that we should try to pay the sales with digital nervous technology. This DNS is it's a different acronym altogether. DNS stands for digital nervous technology. So digital nervous system is the heart of all the sales opportunities, and we will try to digitalize more and more so we all can get benefit out of this kind of seminar, and conversations do end in terms of revenue and sales lead. That's what all I want. I thank you once again for all of you for keeping your time and appearing for this forum. Thank you so much. Do you have anything to say?
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatt, for organizing this seminar.
Thank you.
To
Thank
Dr.
you a
Bhatt
lot.
and your team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.